If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
And back again. Now, okay, Marc Eichinger is a former French accountant, undercover agent, and whistleblower. Nowadays, he's an investigative journalist and writer. He has expertise in international finance, French corruption, North African migration to France, and the rule by diktat of the Macron administration. Marc, thanks for joining us. Describe the turmoil.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us about the turmoil.
Tell us about. I cannot hear you. Can you repeat your question, please?
Can you tell me about the turmoil in France at the moment?
Okay. Well, as you have seen, people tried to block the country, but there were only 240,000, so that's pretty small for blocking a country like France. And clearly, it was more a joke than something really significant. Why that? Just because most of these people were extreme left people, led by Mr. Mélenchon and his party, the LFI, and they are losing steam clearly. The majority of the population now, if there is an election, will vote for conservative extreme right, between brackets. Extreme rights, there is nothing much extreme. It will be much more like Mrs. Meloni in Italy. But in any case, these people will have to face a problem. There is no more money. There is no more gift to be done. And that's key. In the past, any people could be the new prime minister and say, "Oh, I'm going to give this amount to help these people. We will build this. We will do that." There was free money. The public debt was ongoing. Now we have a bit more than 3 trillion of euro of debt, and it's over. You cannot make any gift anymore. And we have other issues. We have to cut the expenses of the state. I will give you an example to illustrate what I'm saying. If you look at the American Congress, altogether, senator and representative, there are 535 people. If you look at the French Congress, lower house and upper house, we have 925 people. And the country is much more smaller. In terms of size of population, it's 3 times, but much more smaller. And so we have to work on that and cut the cost drastically to go back to a level that is sustainable. And we have to change quite a lot of rules without arguing all the time. We have to change the way we look at our public society. Another example, we produce wine. We like it.
It's delightful.
We cannot advertise for wine, consuming. It's forbidden to advertise for wine drinking, and because it's dangerous if you get drunk. Okay, that's fine. We cannot sell weed or cocaine. It's forbidden as well. But you can advertise for weed and cocaine. What I'm saying is that if you look at Netflix and the other platform, they propose hotel cocaine, they propose narcos, they propose all kind of program, all kind of series every day, every month, where the hero is dealing with cocaine, weed, or whatever, where the hero is the guy that has the nice girl, nice life. And of course, everyone is looking at that because it's well done. Everyone is looking at that regularly. And then we have more and more consumers for cocaine, for weed, more than 1 million today. So it doesn't make any sense. At least you could say, okay, let's give up with weed, and we sell officially weed, and you organize that so that you can raise tax on that. But you have more than 70% of the people being in jail today are linked to this kind of traffic. And it doesn't make sense because we will never stop having more consumers. So
yeah, I'm just interested, by the way, the because your government collapses, there's no clear path to a coalition at all.
Yeah.
How how much pressure has immigration? Because we see that Macron, he or was it Macron? Anyway,
Yeah.
he invites
Immig-
he invites.
immigration is, yeah.
So,
Immigration is a big issue, of course,
mm,
like in every country. We can say every day now that everywhere in Europe, immigration is key. It's at the center of every policy. No matter who runs the country, it's at the center. Now, that's why Macron wanted to have a state of Palestine.
mm,
We fear that these people, one day or another, will cross the Mediterranean Sea and go to Europe. That is a big risk. We had, if you remember what happened in Syria and what happened after Gaddafi's collapse, people started migrating. And it's very difficult to stop this kind of migration waves. So if you give them a state of Palestine, at least they have a place to go. When from a legal standpoint, you can say, okay, you have a state of Palestine. If there is no state, and if they keep on being bombed, then for sure they will move. So to go back to immigration, we have this risk. We have the risk of migration also from Ukraine. Syria is not over. You have still a risk of migration. These kind of migration are very hard to stop. And when you look at what Donald Trump is doing in the US, of course, he has eyes doing the job. Of course, he has some kind of success. But the cost, look at the cost. It's huge. You need a huge budget. I know well how HICE is working. I was working for them for 1 year, and they are well-trained people, but they didn't have the means to do what they are doing now. So they had to get an additional budget. I think it's 140 billion dollars to do what they do.
mm.
We cannot afford that. That's the key. That's a problem. We don't have this money anymore. We cannot raise debt to do this. So we have to do it another way. And the other way is to reduce the external risk. Make sure, thanks God, we are not in Niger or in Mali anymore. And there is no more, there is nothing left in this country. The risk is that this population carry on growing, and that's a big risk. It's 4% per year, and you have less and less resources. So they will migrate, but they could migrate within Africa and not within Europe. We have to make sure that they don't go north, because when they are inside, the cost of having sent or to send them back is very high, very high. No matter if it's in the UK, in France, or wherever. Look at Mrs. Meloni in Italy. She suffered quite a lot from this issue. She would like to do more, but she has no means, and that's a problem.
Do you think you'll pay a visit to the IMF, International Monetary Fund, because if you haven't got the money, you'll end up in a terrible way. And at the same time, you got Macron egging NATO to take on Russia. And there was one proposal that they wanted all the European countries to go and borrow an enormous amount of money to give to Zelensky, and what could possibly go wrong. Where do we go from here? Because at the moment you are a basket case. Tell us about the new PM. Is he close to Macron? Is this just another comfortable relationship?
Well, yes, he's very close to Macron, that's for sure. He's someone Macron can trust, and but it won't be enough. I mean, the problem is not to have the trust of the president. The problem is to have a budget. And it would have been better for Macron to work on a budget by himself. In theory, he can run the country through the Article 16 of the Constitution for a while at least. So he could have made a budget by himself with the help of different political parties, including Mrs. Le Pen parties. And then they could have chosen a prime minister. that would have been different. Now we have a new prime minister. Okay, and so what? What is the program? What is the budget? How does it make a difference? If he has no majority, what is the difference? If he's going to the Socialist Party to get a majority, then we know that there will be more public debt. It doesn't work. So he will not. He will have no future. The only way he can have majority that could do something for the country would be to make a coalition with Mrs. Le Pen. Because the mentality is closer from the center right, but Mrs. Le Pen had in mind that the pension could go back to the regulation on the pension could go back to the previous system, which was always in deficit, and that cannot work. But that's the key for the politicians. They want to be elected. They promise. They make gift. And now, if Mrs. Le Pen is in charge, or anyone in her party, she has some legal issue, or anyone in her party, the key would be to say, okay, we don't have the money to come back on the pension regulation. We don't have the money to do this. We don't have the money to do that. We want to fight immigration, but we cannot pay for the flight, and that's a big issue. They have to make a coalition of people of goodwill that will stop the public debt and that will cut the expenses, like the stupid parliament we have. We would work better with a parliament that is half the size of the parliament we have today. I give you an example. When you are a member of the lower house, you can you can do a written question to the government, and the government has 3 months to reply. That's a good idea. Now, because they all want to be in the news, because they focus on what they are going to put on the social network, we end up with 30,000 questions per year to the government. And of course, the government say, okay, we cannot cope with this kind of volume, so we don't answer anymore.
Macron, should he resign?
Just now, it wouldn't help. It would. The problem is not who will run the country; it's how you will run the country. It would be better to do a coalition with Mrs. Le Pen and all together work on a budget. Why? Because the new president, whoever it may be, doesn't matter, will have no majority. The country is split into at least 4 parts. The extreme left, Mélenchon and so on, will disappear slowly, but slowly. It's like in the old days we had a communist party. Okay, they have been to the government once, and we saw they were completely useless. I mean, it was a joke, and that's the same for the extreme left in France. So you have basically a few ecologists, a few socialists, and then conservative and extreme right. We have to do something between conservative and extreme right, knowing that extreme right is exaggerated. Mrs. Meloni is not a fascist. Mrs. Meloni is a leader that works for her country, and I have no doubt that she will respect everybody's freedom in Italy. That would be the same for Le Pen's party, but they lack of leaders, they lack of ideas, they have no clue how to build a budget without increasing the public spending, and that's where they have to work. So you see, if you have election today, and let's say Mrs. Le Pen is the new president, she would be more in trouble than anything else. While her right arm is a young guy who has just no education, no university education, no knowledge, no experience. The guy he would never be able to survive more than 1 month if he was in charge. When you are in the opposition, you can always criticize and say, I will do this way. And you never say how you pay for doing this way. That's a game. That's a game. But when you are in charge, the reality, when you have the weight of the difficulties on your back, then that's different.
Um, okay, if you bring in all these budgetary measures to curtail spending,
Yeah.
how will the French people take to it? Will they embrace austerity, or do you think there will be the whole country will implode?
Well, I doubt that the country will implode just because it's not our mentality. You can see a few young guys demonstrating in the street. You have always people that are eager to look for violence and burn a few cars. But the vast majority of the French people, they do understand that we have a public debt. They do understand it, and the people that are voting are mainly the above 40 people, above, yeah, and these people, they enjoyed the result of the public debt in their daily life for many times, the silver generation, for example, enjoyed the public debt, enjoyed the pension, and they understand that one day we'll have to repay, and all the weight of the debt is on the youngest generation. So we cannot go on like this. People will understand. Now, how are we going to cut the cost is very important. The key is to show that stupid expenditure like our parliament, we it, this has to stop. We have to make an example with all kind of public spending that make no sense.
Mm.
We have a third chamber that is a economic council, and economic and social council. It costs 50 million euro per month per year. It's not much, but it's a symbol. These people, they are just politician friends that have been not even elected by the people. Uh, they have this kind of job because they have a friend that is a member of parliament. They are a member of political party, and they get some money out of that. We have to stop it. All this kind of game, we have to stop it. And if we do that, then we'll show people that we care. We care for €1 is a euro. It's your euro. You don't want it to be spent on stupid things. That will change.
It's interesting, but I think, yeah, in a way, your problems are also, it's not just confined to France, although
Yeah.
our Prime Minister and Starmer and Trump have not invited 2.1 million Palestinians to adopt France as their new home. I think we have to stop the immigration. I think, first of all, look after what's happening within first. You can't do much about the outside world if, for example, your country is a basket case. If somebody wants to find out more about you, Marc, how do they do that?
You can look at Thinkerview. It's in French, but it's a TV network where I intervene sometimes, and I have time to disclose a few information on this channel. And other way, you can read my books. You are welcome to read my books and buy them, but they are all in French so far. If you want to understand how the spies are working, you can read le réseau, the networks, and it will help you to understand how, for example, group like Commander for Israel Securities that I know well are can intervene and can do something, and there are all kind of groups like this all over the world.
Yeah, before this, we were TNT, which is a broadcaster. We had like a whole bunch. We had a lot of people working for us. We were shunned by all governments, but I never knew there were so many spies in the world. And we actually employed a great number of them. And they say, once a spy, always a spy.
Yes, that's true.
Marc, I'd love one day. I'd really love France. The idea of buying some property there in the rural parts of France really tickles my fancy. The wife not so keen, but me, I mean, the property prices are extraordinary in France, and the quality of life is just second to none. Marc Eichinger, a French investigative journalist, thank you very much, sir. We will do this again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. This is The World Today.
With the latest information and analysis of major events from around the world, this is today's News Talk, The World Today.
And back again, my guest is Hall Gardner, Professor Emeritus, American University of Paris. And we're going to have a quick chat about his thoughts on a few things, including the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Hall, thanks for joining us. What's the significance in your mind of the assassination of Charlie Kirk?
Well, it's for me, it's a whole series of violence that's really confronting the United States. Whether it's the assassination of attacks on schools, on political figures, on anyone who's really speaking out, whether they be on the left or the right, and it just shows you that we're really becoming a polarized society that's having a hard time reconciling its differences, and certainly this is a great tragedy, this shooting, but it comes at a time where President Trump was almost killed, but we've had a whole history of this when Kennedy was assassinated previously in a different ideological context. But it means the Americans have to really begin to talk among themselves to end this kind of violence.
I was talking to Carol Lieberman this morning, talking about the reaction to the killing of Charlie Kirk, and a lot of people, it was quite putrid and vile. They were celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, and there seems to be a crusade. I mean, the people on the left, or the Democrats there, seem to be on a crusade, and the crusade is to topple, destroy Donald Trump. It's almost the deranged Trump syndrome thing they talk about. To celebrate the death of someone who was assassinated would have to show you there's a sickness, whether it's overwhelming, but there is a sickness that's part of the American culture at the moment. How do we get rid of that? How do we mend these bridges?
Well, that's just my point. We need to we can't, no assassinate, no murder, no act of violence can be justified on this issue, whether you agree with Mr. Kirk or not. The point is we need this really a national dialogue to try to really talk these things. It's got to be done in a very community-oriented fashion. One of the things Kirk did was to go to communities and talk to them, whether you agreed with him or not. He talked directly to you, and that's the kind of thing we need to put an end to this kind of violence, to really express our differences and find a way to reconcile them without this turn towards violence. I mean, there's many people predicting civil war in the United States. That prediction's been around for a long time. I can even Charlie Manson, way back in the 70s, who was accused of killing movie stars at that time, was predicting a civil war, racial war, and many others have been predicting this for a while. So the point is that we need to find ways to really amend our differences through dialogue.
Dramatic riots in Paris. I always tell my wife I want to live in France, not Paris. Couldn't afford it. But the riots in Paris are concerning. How are the riots affecting you?
Well, well, I've been living in France for 30 years now, and I've seen even worse situations like this. I think the Gilets jaunes, when they first started protesting every Saturday, created more havoc than this particular event. But there'll be more strikes, but probably on the 18th, if not sooner. I'm so used to it now that you just work your way around it and try to figure out not to fly on certain days or go somewhere where in the
Do you
part of the
think
town where
Macron will go though? Do you think Macron will stay, or should he go?
well, well, that's a real tough one. I don't. I think he's very stubborn, and he refuses to step down. Um, whether his new prime minister, this is the seventh prime minister the fifth one in his second term, seventh altogether, shows he hasn't been able to manage the country. He wasn't able to manage the Gilets jaunes in his first term, and he's going to be faced with more crises coming. Um, his new prime minister, Le Cornu, has promised a rupture with the previous Mr. Bayrou, rupture with the politics of Mr. Bayrou. There's been some talk of moving closer to the socialist and center socialist alliance, but that hasn't panned out yet. Um, Everything's being done to prevent Le Pen and the far right from coming into power.
Hmm.
Far left on Mélenchon and France Insoumise. So there's three. The country's really divided into three factions, and they just can't talk. They can't find this compromise. Americans need the same kind of compromise, and the French need to learn to compromise. And the culture of compromise has not been really uh, the value or principle that's managed French affairs for years. They really need I think they need to change their whole parliamentary system. They need to adopt a proportional system more closer to that of Germany. They need real fundamental changes if they're going to get over this. And we're not going to get that from Macron.
No, you won't. What about his participation, though, with the coalition of the willing and the Ukraine talks? I mean, he'd be the poorest one there, just about.
This is very, very disturbing. I mean, one of the reasons the new prime minister has been picked is that he's the one who has, as defense minister, has brought France to help Europeans develop a policy towards Ukraine and support Ukraine uh, in a way that I think is antagonistic and way that will just continue to perpetrate this conflict rather than bring it to an end. And I really think the French need to reassess their policy towards Russia and Ukraine, and that's not going to happen under Mr. Le Cornu.
Mm. Just to wrap this up, because we did start late, so I apologise for the brevity of this, but
Mm.
I need you to look into your crystal ball and tell me. I mean, it's very hard. Even they can't even look forward to plan one day in advance at this stage. But
Mm.
where do you see the austerity thing, the lack of money thing, the budgetary constraints? Where do you see that finishing up in the next few weeks or months?
Yeah, that's just it. Where you cut the budget, they're under European Union constraints to cut the budget in just a few months. That's going to be very difficult for just finding the areas in the French budget where they were cut, and that's going to determine whether or not this prime minister uh, will last for much longer. Certainly, both the left and the right, Le Pen has said, "Look, if you don't cut the budget the way we want you to, you're finished." So we're in for a real clash here, and I'm just as I said, if they can find a way to reconcile their differences, France can weather through this crisis. But I think there's a lot of other international factors as well as domestic that are going to make it very difficult for France to reform itself.
As long as the price of a good Beaujolais doesn't go up, I think you'll be fine.
Well, it
If,
goes up in the United States. I know that. Just check the tariffs are going up there for French products.
if somebody wants to find out more about your hall, how do they do that?
Well, you can look at my website, www.hallgardner.com, or I have a website on MEER, MEER, which is I write essays and poetry on the Hall Gardner MEER, MEER.
I used to enjoy your conversations with Palaneroth Taylor too, and to be back hopefully fairly soon. And I was doing the editing at one stage, and I would just get so absorbed with your insight and Pello's. I mean, both amazing people, and I really enjoyed your conversation. So
Thank you so much. I like Helen. He's great.
he's a very intelligent person, and he's trying to be another Spielberg right now, doing his new doco. So fingers crossed, and let's hope he can
Good.
make some money out of
Excellent.
it too. Hall Gardner, Professor Emeritus, American University of Paris, thank you very much. This is The World Today.
If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Our live shows are also on X, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Kick, and Twitch. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
And back again, Ben Harris-Quinney is chairman of the Bow Group, with over a decade of political and international relations experience. He's the longest-serving chairman. I think it's a Bow Group or Bow Group, we'll find out in a second, which is the world's oldest conservative think tank. Ben, thanks for joining me. Can you tell us about the current UK political climate at the moment?
Well, thanks for having me, Mike. Yeah, what we're seeing really at the moment is actually quite similar to what's been seen across the West, across the continent of Europe, which is on the conservative side of the spectrum, which is the side that I predominantly focus on. You're seeing a replacement of the old establishment Conservative Party with the insurgent force of Reform and Nigel Farage and a few other insurgent groups and forces around him. But actually, you're also now seeing that same replacement taking place on the left side of the spectrum, and the Labour Party and a new insurgent party formed by the former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, and also groups like the Greens. So it's really we're witnessing in slow motion, because it's the first past the post system, but we're witnessing that same death of the establishment and the establishment of new parties that I think better reflect what the public have wanted for a long time. Some call it populism, but I see it as a return to first principles in most cases.
The problem with populism is that it only lasts for a while, but then you become unpopular. Reform UK. I have doubts about Reform UK. I have many doubts about Nigel Farage. I mean, truly, if you're after a celebrity game show host, he's it, because he has this energy. But to me, it doesn't seem all that sincere. What's your thoughts on Reform UK and also Nigel Farage?
Well, I've known Nigel for over a decade now, and really he has been setting the political weather in the UK since at least 2014, when he topped the poll and won the European elections. Because we have a first past the post system, so we don't have a proportional representation system, we don't have a presidential election system where it's just done on who's most immediately popular at the time. It usually takes a very long time in British politics to see a significant change. We saw it in the early part of the 20th century with the replacement of the Liberal Party and the emergence of the Labour Party. And we're seeing a similar shift now, as I said. In terms of Farage and Reform generally, I think one of the big problems they face is in making that transition, you have to be able to draw in a huge amount of talent. And our entire system is geared around the establishment. The people that know how government works and how to make things happen are really all establishment figures in the UK. So they have a manpower issue and they have a man management issue, because historically, Farage in his various guises, party operations with UKIP, Brexit, and the Reform Party, he has been the single figure that has dominated those party structures. Obviously, to transition into government, you need more of a chorus of talents, and that has been an issue. There's also an issue where I think that perhaps that you're alluding to, where he's trying to balance taking in a wider segment of the potential British voter base, people that used to vote Tory, people that used to vote Labour, maybe even a few that used to vote Liberal Democrats. And in so doing, there have been a few issues with alienating the original base, on questions like what to do about immigration, asylum seekers, whether there should be
We actually have you're frozen at the moment. You'll probably come back to life in a sec. Our guest, we're just talking about the current political climate in the UK. When we get back to our guest here, which is just it's one of those days, by the way, Ben Harris-Quinney. 'Cause I want to talk to him about the Tories and whether the Tories will more will join Reform. Ben, can you hear us now? No, where your internet at the moment is frozen. What we might do is go to a quick.
Here, yeah.
Oh, here we are. We're back again. We're back again. Ben, I was just talking about the Tories. Do you think more Tories will become part of a Reform UK? No, we have we have some.
Well, that's one of the difficult.
Yep.
That's one of the difficult balances that I think Farage has to strike. The recent conference, they announced a key ally in Boris Johnson's government, Nadine Dorries, had defected to Reform. But as you allude, there is an issue with if everyone that used to be in the Conservative Party or formed those previous Conservative governments, the dissatisfaction with which led to the rise of Reform, if they all just shift to Reform, the question is, are we actually getting anything new? And I would encourage Reform really to focus more on new talent. I think most people, whatever their political viewpoints, feel that we need a refresh in Westminster. So I don't think those old faces are going to be the answer. I think the reason he's doing that and he did that is to try and take away the structure around Boris Johnson, to make it more difficult for Boris Johnson to come back, because that would be the only thing that I think the Conservative Party could do to rebound in the polls and present a threat to Farage. So there's an element of brinkmanship and strategy there. But I think they've got to look longer term and think, do we just want figures from the old failed Tory government, or do we want to build something new?
Yeah, I see that Nigel and also the Reform UK getting enormous support from GB News, which is doing quite well on its ratings, which is good for a change because it costs them an absolute fortune to stay on air. Without that support from GB News, would Reform be as strong as they are now?
No, I don't think they would, but Farage is an incredible commentator and an incredible communicator. So he had really built his brand using earned media and other media, and even the BBC. And he'd managed to use that infrastructure, which for the most part was against him, for the most part was trying to trip him up and catch him out. And he ran rings around them and became one of the most famous men in the country, one of the most famous men in the world. So he now makes his own weather. All he has to do is wake up in the morning and send a tweet, and he can set the news agenda just by doing that. So, of course, GB News has been an aid, but I think if it wasn't for that, he would be able to find other channels to reach people. So with his communication skill, I don't think he necessarily needs that. But of course, as I said, because they need to build a chorus, they need other figures to come forward that become publicly recognisable, that win the faith of the public. Is probably more important on that level. That on GB News, we've seen not only Farage, but a number of figures that now form a core part of the Reform movement, and I'm sure there'll be more to follow.
On your post on X, it's obvious that you're not afraid of saying what you think, what needs to be said. Why is it that the most conservatives are quite timid, if not wet flannels, wet blankets? They are very weak. Why won't they prosecute the case for Conservatives a little more stronger? We're frozen again. We are having a magnificent day today. What we might do is just give this a miss now, because we've reached the end anyway. Ben Harris-Quinney, I do want to talk to him about more things down the track, because they are very, very important. And he's very strong on X, and he is standing up for what Conservatives should be doing more vocally. But anyway, next time we will hopefully have a better connection. Enjoyed your company very much this week, folks, too, by the way. I hope you enjoyed our company. A new show, The Country Telegraph, which is still pretty up there, or out there. It's really standing up for the farmer and providing insight, information, not only for the rural sector, whether you're a grower, a farmer, whatever. It's also good, I think, for those who aren't part of that farming community, and shows you exactly what they're going through and the trouble that they have to provide food on your table. And it's not weather, it's not market prices, it's none of that. The main cause of grief with farmers is government, and government need to stay out. I mean, look at in Australia, for example, you have the Premier of Victoria, who's got all these draconian measures coming into farmers. She's from the rural community, and she's doing a dreadful job. They soon forget what it's like to be on the land. And as for our other shows, we do that in the Australian time, AM and PM, and we have some magnificent guests on. For example, tonight, they were just fantastic. So thank you very much, everybody. Enjoyed your company. We will try and get Ben next week, because he's truly making an enormous amount of sense, and his insight is probably second to none. This is The World Today.